With the back body line here, what we're trying to do or start to teach athletes at a much lower level is how to round their lower back or create that posterior pelvic tilt. So when we start kicking up into a handstand, we're kind of preventing that banana handstand position, and this is just going to do it in a much lower level situation here. So what the athletes are going to do, we're going to lay on our back, and I start everybody off no matter what variation you're on, because we've got a beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Everyone is going to start the same way here. I put the hands on the stick roughly shoulder width apart. My elbows are locked out pointing towards the ceiling, my knees are locked out pointing towards the ceiling, and then I'm pushing my lower back into the floor to create that posterior pelvic tilt. And then from there, for the beginner variation, I'm just going to move my arms and hands a little. There's no objective measure here. It's just from the top, move it down a little, and then hold. And while we're holding, we're pushing our lower back to the floor as hard as we can. If we have a friend or a training partner, they can place their hand there so you can kind of crush their hand and you have an external cue. So first variation is going to be about right there. So then the second variation, or our intermediate variation, is literally going to be the same exact setup, but then from there we're just going to lower our hands and feet a little closer to the floor. So whereas our first variation was to here, the next variation is going to be somewhere in between. So like right there, same points of performing. So elbows locked out, knees locked out, pushing the lower back into the floor as hard as we can. So if that's the intermediate version, the advanced version is going to be basically as close as our hands and feet can get to the floor without actually touching them. So same thing, I'm starting up at the top, lowering down as far as I can, elbows locked out, knees locked out, pushing my lower back into the floor. So the main common mistake I see with this exercise is people lifting the neck up off the floor. This is not a hollow body. There's nothing wrong with a hollow body, but this is different than the hollow body position. And that's because we're trying to reinforce this posterior pelvic tilted position, we're trying to reinforce this posterior pelvic tilt position in a handstand. And the hollow body, we're lifting the head up off the floor and we're rounding the neck. When you get into more advanced handstands, yes, you're going to tuck the chin and look behind you, but in the beginner variation of a handstand, your neck's actually going to be extended or looking at the floor, so you have a place to focus on for balance. So if we're reinforcing this posterior pelvic tilted position with the chin rounded, they're two totally different movements. And actually, it's easier to round the lower back when we tuck the chin for a hollow body position. So that's why we're not lifting the head up here. So that's going to be the biggest mistake I see with people make on a regular basis. Other than that, as always, take your time with this stuff, focus on quality over quantity. There's no rush here.